Even still though, Drew, with only one more, we're still gonna have a lot. Every time there's a recusal, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I know that.
All right, well, you can get rid of through your regular agenda. We're recording
Well,
now, so you can
I'm
start.
hoping is Mark comes in late and Victor reconnects eventually. Oh, all right. So Robert, you're probably in the best position to do the roll call as we have it at the moment.
Yes, I'll do it. All right, Ms. Pecora. I know you spoke. Roxanne's here.
She's
Mr.
there.
Gadali.
Yeah, I'm here. I just had to unmute.
Yep, no problem. Mr. Gadali.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Cohen,
Present.
Mr. McCarthy,
Present.
Mr. Hanson,
I'm here.
Miss Lanzetta,
Here.
Mr. Calamano, not here. Mr. Bogus,
I'm here.
Mr. Wilkin.
Here.
Mr. Baden,
Here,
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Hubbard. See, I think he was supposed to have joined via the public link, but I can't see him. Oh, and I'm gonna promote Dennis.
Mike Calamano's in.
Mike Calamano's in.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
in he's there now.
Aha. Okay, we're gonna promote him. Okay. All right, so Mr. Mike Calamano is here. Okay.
We got a quorum.
Where was I? Mr. Spada. No, Ms. Walton was excused. Mr. Watkins not here yet. Miss Hayner, Mr. Almquist is also excused. Mr. Markowitz not here. Mr. Murray,
Still here.
great. Mr. McLaughlin,
Here.
okay. If that is Mr. Calamano joining us, we do actually have a quorum. So. All right,
Barely, right? We got 13.
got 13.
Okay, all right.
Well, if we get Mark Watkins before we do the referrals, we'd be okay.
You'll be good. Okay.
And yeah, I'd wait on doing the minutes for a bit.
At 13, I thought we only have 12. Because you got 3 staff.
Right. We got 16 people, 3.
Yeah,
that's
it's 19.
13.
We're good. We're good. You got
13.
I'm
13.
only showing 15 on the panel. So
I see 19.
I say 19 participants, but on the panelists, it's only 15. We have
And-
four attendees.
All right. Oh.
If Mark comes, we're good.
Hang on.
Count your list, Robert.
I am.
Michael, you're muted.
I have 13 right now. So
Yeah.
It's
Tom, it's
13
Tom, it's
because
'cause
Dennis
Dennis-
is not a panelist. He's calling.
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, we're fine, Tom.
Okay. All right. Since we got 13, I guess we can approve the minutes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll move to accept them. McLaughlin.
I'll
Second,
second
McCarthy.
Baden.
Second.
Oh,
Okay.
Marcy,
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, minutes from last month are approved. Very good. All right. Do we have any educational or training opportunities anybody wants to talk about? All right, we'll move right along then. Community reports. I'll start with Olive. One of the things that occurred today is if you call, the fire department in Boyceville has got a new location up the hill from Boyceville towards Kingston. They finally started construction today with the excavator excavating out, I'm assuming, the foundation. So hopefully that will move along pretty good. And also we are starting, I'll call it phase 1 of a comprehensive plan where we're doing outreach to the community for input. And we applied for a consolidated fund application, grant application Friday with the state to take care of the second phase of it once we get the community input. That's all I got for Olive at the moment. Anybody else? No other community reports. Okay. Okay, I do not have anything to report. Other than I'm looking forward to our special topic discussion later tonight. Okay, Dennis, are you on it good enough? You can do the planning department reports?
Sure, and thank you. We're still in the process of budget. We're getting asked a lot of questions about what we're doing about housing. So we had a meeting with the housing committees today to have that discussion. But the budget looks good. The Transportation Council is going to finish up its vulnerability study. And we have two other studies that we are going to start. One is on the Route 9W corridor study. That kickoff meeting is going to take place in August. And then we're currently in negotiations with a consultant relative to a study that we're talking about in terms of rail safety. But other than that, the department is pretty busy. We hopefully will be able to start our Kingston Rail Trail before fall, or right at fall. And then we received some of our contracts and some of our necessary work that we have to do to begin the work in Shandaken, and we'll start on that probably next week or the week after next. So we're pretty busy, and things are going well.
Dennis, how is the new planner? Kai is his name? How is
Yeah, he's
that
doing
going?
great.
Good.
Yeah, he's doing really well.
We'll have to have him at a meeting some night so we can meet him.
Yeah, be a good idea.
Okay, we can do that. We'll have him. We're gonna probably roll. We're gonna probably roll out the Housing Smart Communities Initiative website.
Oh,
We're
great.
gonna probably roll. We're probably gonna roll that out in September, and that would be a good meeting for him. Either September or October would be a good meeting for him to discuss.
Absolutely.
Hey, Dennis, you got anything on the financial report?
No, we're fine.
Okay. How about the environmental notice bulletin and grant opportunities?
I have nothing to add.
Okay. And you did the director and staff reports already, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So we're moving right along. By the way, does anyone have Mark's contact? You could maybe text him and see if he's gonna, when he thinks he's gonna be joining.
Yeah,
I tried to. Go ahead.
no, I'm pretty sure I do, but if Dennis, I've been betting Dennis already tried it.
Oh, okay. All
No,
right.
we still have 13, thankfully, so.
Well,
Yeah.
we can do any that don't require recusals first, Drew, and then circle back to any that do.
Yes, that's good point. All right, Dennis, you want to do the special topic on the court decision on the Hurley Town Planning Board?
Sure. The Hurley Town Planning Board, you may remember this has to do with the Dunkin' Donuts on the corner of Route 375 and 28. We conducted a gateway meeting for that project when it first came before us, and then we conducted a second discussion with respect to the response from the applicant. And at that discussion, there were two members of the Hurley Planning Board there, and I think, Mike, you attended from the County Planning Board, as well as NISDOT officials, et cetera. The applicant, the town denied, I think unanimously, town denied the application for the proposed Dunkin' Donuts. The applicant took the community to court. There was a court decision. In that court decision, I apologize. That court decision essentially said that there wasn't a substantial record that was developed by the local planning board for the denial. That's one of the first things it said. And the second thing it said was that the the gateway meeting that was conducted, and I believe they're referring to the second one, although it's difficult to tell from the decision. The judge took a great deal of umbrage with respect to that gateway meeting and the fact that the judge indicated that that the trying to avoid the opens meeting law or circumvent, I believe is how he put it in the decision. I believe he's got copies of the decision. Trying
Yeah.
to circumvent the local meetings law, and he was not happy with that gateway meeting. And that touched off at the county level a firestorm of how these gateway meetings are conducted. He was concerned that there was no minutes, no agenda, and no announcement, and effectively called it an illegal meeting. And so that kicked off a firestorm of review in terms of where the judge was coming from. And as a result of that review, we're still waiting for final determinations or final discussions from the county attorney's office. But we've asked a number of other attorneys what their opinions were, and the short answer I would give the board is that if you do not have a quorum of any board present, you do not have a meeting, and if you do not have a meeting, you don't have anything that is against the opens meeting law. And that seems, and there's some case law that exists with respect to this. I'll give you one example in the case law that we've seen is the case was brought the city of Kingston had a meeting with some elected officials and the agencies that were involved in the approval of the Kingstonian. And that was brought up in part of the lawsuits against the Kingstonian, and Judge Mott ruled that that meeting was not illegal and it didn't violate the opens meetings law. So where we stand right now is in two ways. One is that we absolutely positively want to make sure that when we have a gateway meeting that we don't have a quorum, and we want to make sure that we have the sign-in sheet for that meeting that indicates that there's not a quorum. We're thinking about putting an agenda together that indicates that what we're doing here is it's an agency review with the applicant and members of various boards present, but not constituting a quorum. And I'm debating whether or not I want to change it so that it's not called a meeting. I know it sounds a bit weird, but the idea that we're calling them gateway meetings, I think, is a part of the confusion. And so we may want to think about calling it a gateway agency review.
Or a gateway conference or discussion.
Or a gateway conference. There's something, you're absolutely right, Roxanne. What I want to I want to remove the word meeting. And that would change some of I think the perception that somehow we're actually having a quote meeting that is required to be noticed and worked through on that basis. We've been given the go-ahead by the county attorney's office to conduct those gateway meetings. I've had a discussion with the folks from NISDOT to whether or not, because my biggest concern is that agencies would not attend. NISDOT basically indicated to us that as long as they weren't directed not to attend, they will continue to attend. So we're waiting to see what happens with regard to this, but there is some concern that that if it's not challenged and it becomes an accepted case, that it may affect not just our gateway meetings, but other meetings as well, in terms of what you can do or can't do as board members. And I don't know if two members of a room constitute a reason to circumvent the meeting. Why not, one member of a town board and one member of the planning board doing the same thing? So there is some concern, I think, being expressed at some levels about what this means. And we just have to wait for further developments. That's all.
Is there any appropriate way for the county, I'll call it attorney, to send some kind of document to the judge about our concern with his judgment? Or is that
No,
appropriate?
the appropriate way is to essentially, if the town appeals the case, much of this was directed at the town, at least that's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yep. Hey, Mark's here.
The way that we could participate is if there's an appeal to the judge's decision, then the county could file what is called an amicus brief with the appellate court in terms of its participation and how how the gateway meetings actually function.
Okay.
Dennis, this is Mitchell Cohen. I would also recommend that whoever is going to host the gateway meeting, whether it's going to be a municipality or whether it's going to be the county, a decision has to be made on who's going to be the belly button on that, because normally, if you have a meeting per se, open meeting law, person hosting it would normally do the recording, normally do the minutes, because they're requesting it. They're having the meeting. So I know in this case, the municipality did not request the second meeting. So, and there was no quorum, so there was no minutes required.
If we're switching
I
from a
don't
meeting,
I don't believe that there are quote minutes required, and the more that we formalize this and make it look like a meeting, I'm concerned that people will actually think it is a meeting under open meetings law.
Right.
This was always meant to be an informal meeting. We always did it as an
Right.
informal meeting.
maybe,
So I don't know
Why-
why we're even considering to formalize. You don't want to formalize. It's an informal discussion.
the discussion and you take notes. You do
Right.
not take minutes.
We do not
Yeah.
take minutes for it.
That's right.
Right.
So pretty much, Dennis, it's Vince here. So pretty much what the judge is saying, if I have it right, is that we can't have the meetings anymore, or we have to, what am I getting here?
Well, the judge is saying exactly what's in the decision, that he thought it was an attempt to circumvent the open meetings law.
But the way I was reading that also, if you expand it a little bit, I got the impression from the judge's point of view, if you were having a discussion about, let's say, a planning board application, where you were discussing the application, whether you had a quorum or not, he saw that as circumventing the open meetings law.
Yeah,
Had to do with the gateway.
It should be noted that we did have an attendance sheet and it was never requested of us. And if they had simply requested the attendance sheet, that might have solved the whole issue.
Drew, if I can chime in on this,
Sure.
I first heard about this actually before it got circulated, and I've talked at length with our town attorney, and I've talked at length with other attorneys, municipal attorneys, and as Dennis said, the general consensus of every person I've spoken to is that these meetings are not governed by open meetings. In the decision, the judge even went so far to say as like a conversation with the DOT should take place in a meeting, not, and what that would do, that would eliminate even any dialogue between agencies. It's a pretty ridiculous decision.
Well, that's the way I was
Yeah.
reading. it.
I
Just
am
anything.
trying, and unfortunately, the Supervisors Association takes August off from meetings. So we won't meet as a body again until September. I am trying to see if I can put together a coalition of either municipalities or agencies or people to challenge that part of the decision.
Okay,
I'm unclear if we can or can't, but
well, that was my
there
next
is a-
question. Could it
there
be
is a
done?
time frame for it. I know some people will be cautious about doing that, but I suspect that this is a pretty radical decision and it goes contrary to anything that's ever been said.
Correct.
And even the county, the New York State Committee on Open Government has, open meetings is one of the most clearly defined statutes that I know of.
And plus, there's,
And I think this is an overreach. I have some inside information that I'd rather not disclose right now about the source of some of this opinion, but anyway, I'm hoping somebody challenges it. I'm doing all I can to find somebody to challenge it.
yeah, that's the way I feel, is it needs to be challenged somehow.
So pretty much, if we have one of these meetings, we have to advertise for it, correct?
No,
No.
that's not it at all, Vince. It just says the judge has, in this particular case, has ruled that that particular meeting violated open meetings. It's not saying every one of them, but Dennis's concern is that it can be used as a tool against us in future because now it's set precedent.
Right.
So we still follow the open meetings law.
Yeah. But the judge pretty much singled out that particular meeting, is what you're saying?
Yeah, well, because that's what the Article 78 was filed on that decision. And that meeting was part of the record of that decision, so.
You know, we could ask for a written opinion from the from open governments. They do that. If we send them
Yeah,
the information and they
Yeah,
will
I don't know
opine
that they
on that.
will counter a judge's
Yeah, I would,
decision, though.
They
Yeah.
don't counter a decision, they opine on it.
Yeah.
And so if we have that opinion from open government, I would think that would be something valuable to have.
Oh, now I understand. So you're talking about our particular meetings, not on the decision itself. Now I understand.
okay.
Has the county attorney said that we can have these meetings in the future, or?
We are going to continue to have the meetings until somebody basically tells us to stop, and the county attorney has not said not to have them.
Right. And we're
So
gonna try,
I'll leave it at that. I don't
we're
want to
gonna
put
try
words
not to
in-
use
I
the
don't wanna
word
put
meeting.
words- Yeah,
So I didn't hear you, the last part. You said that we can have them?
yes,
Okay.
Yeah, essentially, it's
I
a
don't wanna put-
pre-submission discussion. That's really what it is, a pre-submission discussion to tell the applicants what is required, what is needed, what we're looking for in their application. Just
Yeah.
help give them guidance.
in my understanding, at least in some planning boards, particularly I think Woodstock for sure, is sometimes one or two planning board members will meet with the applicant to start getting everything in order. And that's not considered a public meeting either. But it's just try to help the applicant get his ducks in a row for the formal meeting. And I know that occurs. And it's the same type of thing. So.
We have what we call a pre-application meeting. Two
Yeah,
planning board members, the town attorney and the town planner meets with an applicant.
Yep.
We review their application so that when it's submitted, we have a more complete application, and it cuts down on the time that it takes to review the project.
right.
So, again, there's no quorums, there's no minutes, there's no anything, but it's still considered a meeting.
Yeah, and the way the judge, if the judge was to look at that, I think he would have the same opinion about that as he does with the gateway in this particular case. All right, we probably beat that as much as we can. So Robert, we got anybody in the public that wants to make a comment?
Robert?
All right, I saw Steve Hubbard is actually out there and I'm promoting him to panelist.
Oh, okay.
He's from Saugerties.
All right.
Any other members of the public want to speak? Raise your hand if you want to.
All right, doesn't look like anybody.
Steve
All
is
right.
not from being, do that, no, okay, now.
Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any comments, so let's move on to referrals, Robert.
Yeah, just trying to move, I don't know,
Trying to get Steve in.
yeah, I'm trying, I mean, I hit it, so he should hit, I think, I don't, it should accept, I think he has to hit an accept button on that.
Oh, okay.
So are we up to referrals now?
Yeah.
All right, hang on.
Okay, so the first one is the Sopus, the camping in the waterfront zone. Do we have any recusals?
All right, everybody's team.
Yeah, I have to recruit for Sophus.
Okay.
We do have 14, just so you know.
Right.
And if Mr. Hubbard gets promoted, then he should join us here.
Yeah, Rob, his hand up went up and down, but maybe.
Yeah, I know. I turned him on and then.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to. There should be something there that says you've been invited to promote to panelist.
It usually pops up in a big screen in the middle.
Yes, I don't know why. Okay, here he is. He's coming on now. All right.
So what do we have right now for the number of members? Is it like 14 or 15?
We're now at 15, so we can have 2 recusals.
We're good. Okay.
All right. All right. This is probably the third and
Just so everybody knows, I'm able to follow along. I've been able to actually download the presentation, but for some reason I can't get on the Zoom call. My internet is spotty, so I apologize, but I can follow along and take the votes, Rob, just so you know.
okay, great. I'll try to do it as well. All right, so SOPA's local law number 2. This is the third time we're seeing the marina law. And what they've done this time is they've greatly simplified it. They've scaled it back a lot. So it's still a special use permit. So this is just for the waterfront zone. Again, most of the board is familiar with it, but for those that aren't, they're allowing camping at marinas and boatyards and campgrounds just in the waterfront district, which is along Rondout Creek in Connolly. So it would be a special use permit in the W zone. What they've done is they simplify it. So now it's a maximum of 12 campsites. They removed the acre requirement. It's just 12 campsites and may not occupy more than 1/3 of the total property. So that's it. The seasonal requirement of April 1st, October 31st is still there. What they did was they made sure that each site is physically defined and designated for emergency services. So they're going to have them lay it out on the plan, show where everything is, fire pit, where the campers go. I want to make sure, one of my comments will be make sure there's a parking spot for each site as well. They also, the 10-foot requirement from any marina operations vehicular traffic is still in there. That's old. They required an emergency preparedness plan right last time as well. They added this, which is camping only. They wanted to make sure that there are no permanent external appurtenances like a carport, for example, and that all vehicles have to be in transportable condition at all times. So they don't want anybody staying long term. And they have the requirement for all music to stop by 9 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. At 10 p.m., fires are confined to designated fire pits and fireworks are prohibited. Last time I suggested that they create some sort of mechanism for monitoring noise, whether they put noise metered or these wireless noise meters, which you can be identified from remotely to see if somebody's in violation of that, or the town would take it upon itself to really actively enforce that requirement and notify police agencies to that effect. And then of course, fire department must have unimpeded access. So comments, we reviewed this many times and we have yet to see an actual application for this. Whoop, sorry, I skimmed ahead of it. This shouldn't be as clunky as last month. This is a much smaller PowerPoint file than last month. So parking should be included as part of the definition of the campsite area. And as I mentioned, some sort of noise monitoring or some mechanism for enforcement of those noise regulations down at those areas. Those are my staff's 2 comments.
Rob, this is Mitchell Cohen.
Sure.
I just have one quick question. The fires that are restricted to the campfires, is there going to be a fire guard or somebody maintaining a visual of lit fires I'm thinking that this is in an area where sparks can light the woods. So
Right.
are you letting fires be, lit throughout the course of the evening and nobody's watching it?
Well, it has to be within a designated fire pit, and I think they'll be developed as part of the site. So it'll be in a designated location on site where they can have fires under control. Whether somebody's watching it or not, I could not tell you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or they should be
that'd be a
shaded
staff
lights or-
regulation as part of a license or permit. You could have that.
Yep,
That's more about, again, that's an enforcement issue.
yep.
Robert, this is Scott McCarthy. Quick question. What is the overall size of the area and what is the overall size of the campsite area itself? So you have
Like I
the
said, there's-
property and
There's no minimum size anymore. It used to be, it had to be at least 1 acre in size. And so now they've removed that requirement to just maximum of 12 campsites in an area and no more than 1/3 of the entire marina campground properties. But what they've done is they've eliminated the possibility that they can have 24 or 36 because they have the density for it. Any marina, maximum 12 sites.
Mitchell Cohen's making a motion to support the staff.
I'll second Mike Baden.
All right. Any other discussion?
Yeah, Rob, could you like put an RV on here and basically leave it all summer if the campground was amenable to that? Could you basically live there all summer?
You could, but it had to be in wheels up, it'd be transportable at all times, and you can't do like they have a whole list of accessories that they do not allow there. So like I said, like a carport, or there are other things that were listed in there that would show some sort of sign of permanence that they're not allowing.
Yeah, but you could.
But they could
basically-
park an RV park in there and have it set up all summer, as long as the wheels are there,
Yeah.
then I guess that would comply. I don't know that that's that big an issue.
Okay. Any other discussion? And all those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Very good.
Right, McCarthy seconded that, right?
Mike Baden.
McCarthy made a
Mike Bain
motion.
said it.
Mike, yeah,
Mike did. Okay, thanks. I know Mitchell Cohen motioned it. Okay.
okay, the next one is the City of Kingston. Is any recusals? Okay,
All right.
Robert,
So this is Golden Hill. Let's see if I can get to. That's Golden Hill. So we reviewed this back in June for the site plan. We were reviewing that, the multi-generational housing proposal, and we had mentioned as one of our comments, and they were aware of it, that they also needed to rezone it. It's currently zoned RRR. Like this is the former jail site. So this is a better picture of it anyway. So that's the site, currently zone RRR, and you see all the surrounding zoning there. It's actually immediately adjacent to, it's going to be changed to O2. So there is actually an O2 site right next to it. That's like an office kind of use. So that it conforms to all the standards for the O2 zone in terms of it was designed for that. We will be seeing a couple area variances back for it for building length. That's probably next month. But otherwise, the staff recommends supporting the project. I mean, fills a critical need of the housing in this housing emergency that's going on in the county and nationwide. And it's designed to not only have affordable housing for all sorts of different people, but will have on-site daycare and things of that nature. So, and it conforms to all the underlying zoning that the O2 district. So
Rob,
staff just
I don't know
recommends
where
that they provide a map that it become
Rob?
part of the official map. Yeah, go on.
I don't know where you are. Could you go back and show them the site plan?
I mean, that's the only site plan I brought in, Dennis.
That's fine. Just that one there. I just want to point out that the original overview is all of the existing county property. The color one that you looked at That's
Right.
all the county property. It's a little over 40 acres. The proposed rezoning is only for the lot that is going to be divided off. The remainder of the county lot would remain as a triple R district.
Right.
So it's only
Okay.
for lot one, which is about 20.4 acres or I think it's 20.4 acres. That's the only proposal. That would
Right.
be the only area that'd be rezoned. And that's more consistent since that's the area that is currently, if you go back to that map that Rob had, that's the area that's currently adjacent to the existing O2 itself.
Right.
I just want to make the board aware of the fact that it's not all of that area that's being rezoned. It's just the 20 acres associated with the project and also associated with the existing O2 area.
So that would be that area.
Motion to accept it, McLaughlin.
Second, McCarthy.
All right, very good. Any other discussion? All right, all those opposed? And any abstentions? Very good, motion passes.
I'll take one.
All right. Now we're on to Town of Kingston. Any recusals? Okay, Robert, it's all yours.
All right, Town of Kingston is adopting a law to handle and establish fee schedule, including for land use applications. Essentially, it gives the power to the town board to adopt fee schedules and change them at different times. And it establishes an escrow process and a replenishment when it drops below 80%, and that the town will be reimbursed for anything it needs reviewed from its consultants as part of a project process. There's no county impact on that.
Motion, McCarthy.
Second, Baden.
All right, any further discussion?
Well, guys, you're outrunning me here.
All right, all those opposed? Any abstentions? Good, motion passes. Moving right along here. All right, now we're with Marlboro, with the Marlboro Bayside. Any recusals?
Cindy, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't unmute.
I saw.
I'm recusing.
Okay, thanks, Cindy.
All
Okay,
right. Let me go to Ariel. Now, we reviewed this several years ago now. And what's happened? This is not the project. Do I have it on here? No, I don't. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to this. So it's in the Hamlet of Marlboro. It's next to the middle school. It's up the hill. It's a 104 unit residential complex. It's been previously reviewed. It was reviewed by us. It also had that commercial component, which is along Route 9W, which went into their business overlay district, if you remember. And we had a bunch of comments last time, but this is a site plan amendment, and the amendment is for one note on the plan, but it's a significant note, because what it says is they're removing the no blasting restriction on the approved site plan for excavation work. So that means you're going to have, or potentially have, blasting occur, and that's right next to a middle school on one side and a residential neighborhood on the other side. So they have those two issues. Now, the school district did issue a very good letter with some requirements that they wanted issued. And we had a geotechnical report from the original submittal. So this is the sheet that they amended. There was a note in there, in those notes, that said no blasting. Now it says blasting. This is the original submittal. So this is just to give you a sense. So you have Purdy Lane here, and you have a bunch of residents. This is all residential here, residents, and then you have residences here. And so you have this project in here, and the middle school is right over in here. So it's close by. So one, if you're gonna do blasting, you need to update the SWIP. The applicant's aware of that, but we don't have it, so they'll need to update the SWIP. School district issued a pretty thoughtful letter, and we'd actually like them to meet those requirements. One, they should have a schedule established for when they're going to do blasting. We highly recommend that they be not in session when they do it. They should take advantage of the summer or maximize those times of day when it's not in session, and also not when the buses are on the property and they're picking up the kids. And they should have a very detailed time of day and limit it during certain hours as well. They should have a location of where those blasting sites could potentially happen. The school district also wanted them to be responsible for any and all repairs or expenses related to repairs from damage from construction work and or blasting. I would say that should also occur for Purdy Lane, that's even closer to the blasting site in many instances than the middle school itself. They also requested an engineering report documenting conditions at and around Marlborough Middle School. Like I said, they have a geotechnical report on the project itself. They may want to look at middle school and also, as I mentioned, Purdy Lane as well, that whole residential area. And also the other requirement that the school district wanted was the proof of permit, certification, safety plans, and related to school district, and also, notify the school district prior to blasting. So that was a whole bunch of requirements that they should mitigate any impacts as a result of blasting, essentially. Any other comments?
What about the idea of a bond instead of being the responsible for any and all repairs or expenses? What about submitting a reimbursable bond when the blasting is completed? I'm sure, I'm betting or guessing that Marlborough's zoning law allows the planning board to request a bond to be held for completion of things like landscaping or road work. So if it's possible.
Good comment.
And what happens if the bond is too small? You have no idea.
You have
That's
no way
true.
to set the bond. That's correct. You have no way to set it. You don't
Yeah.
know what the damages are.
True.
And there are standards for blasting in New York State. The
Right.
thing here is that there's usually monitoring standards. The thing here is to take some extra attention with respect to the fact that it's adjacent to the school and try to protect the kids as much as you can.
Well, the public too, the residences too. So
I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't protect the public. I'm just suggesting that we should take extra care because it's adjacent to the school.
motion to support staff. Watkins.
In
I'll
addition,
second Mike Baden.
can there also be some inclusion of Purdy Lane when it comes to the safety plans? That those be available to any of the residents?
I'll put that as part of the comment. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely want that to be as part of the residents as well.
Yeah,
So
right.
I'll anything I say for the school district, I will also say for the residences around the.
Hey,
Perfect.
Rob, I got a quick
Thank
question.
you.
Sure.
Can we put a comment in there about having emergency services notified?
Well, that would require an amendment to the motion.
Well, emergency services are generally not involved in blasting.
No, but just have them simply be notified prior to blasting?
I mean,
If there's a problem, they'll be notified.
Yeah.
sure enough.
It's already been done with the other approval. So the fires, any emergency services will be aware that the project started.
There's nothing that they would do different. They would just have an awareness of it, but because there's some pretty strict regulations about blasting in general that they're gonna have to comply with, so.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Very good. Okay, Cindy, you want to be recused on the next one for the zoning amendments?
Yes, please.
Okay. Any other recusals? All right, we're very good.
Okay.
Okay, Robert.
Great. So this is a variety. We have a couple of referrals like this with a miscellaneous list of zoning amendments. First, part of it isn't that much of an issue, isn't an issue. It's basically taking the bed and breakfast use and basically making it look a lot like the short-term rental. So that they have to be permanently owned, owner occupied structures, which is standard for bed and breakfasts. And then, but they're tying it to requiring an annual permit like STRs, requiring them to be limited 50% of the structure. And then they have a additional B&B section, which reads a lot like standard short-term rental language for things like you have to tell the people who are staying about community life issues, so many parking spaces, all that kind of stuff. So not a big issue, but there's more. If my computer will listen to me. All right. They did some odd changes to the short-term rental definition. So they removed a phrase in there that requires them to permanently reside at the short-term rental, but so it says they have to have fee title, but so that means there could be potentially non-owner occupied, but in order to do so, there's an and there. You have to own a dwelling unit, which is next door directly across the street. So it's not necessarily the proliferation that you might see in other towns because you have to be next door across the street. And also the statute only allows interest in 2 B&Bs and 2 short-term rentals. So it's a little odd and different, but I mean, the one thing we might notice, it reads like it encourages you to buy your neighbor's house. I don't know.
Well, the other thing is across
Yes.
the street is pretty vague.
It is. It's
Yeah.
a little big. So
Especially in a rural area like ours.
okay, so we could make an advisory comment about increasing their specificity with respect to that.
Excuse me, couldn't those words be replaced by the word nearby?
That would be even more vague.
Well,
Well, think of what they do for separation of various things. It's, if you have separations for certain uses, it's within 500 feet,
Yeah.
and then there's something in the statute that calls for that. And my sense would be is that they would be better off talking about it that way than talking about it across the street or adjacent.
Well, why do we want to recommend a number of feet?
I would prefer to recommend that they just don't allow it, but that's beside the point.
I mean, we could also say non-owner occupied as well, which I believe we made some sort of a similar comment the first time around.
I would make a
But
motion. for
I'm
that.
fine I'm fine if you basically want to say that if you're going to allow them, they should not be vague
Could
about
we-
it, make a suggestion.
Could we make a required modification to say to remain owner occupied, but then give an advisory comment that if they choose to overrule the required modification, that we recommend within 500 feet instead of next door or directly across the street,
How about 250?
or 250, whatever the number
I don't
is.
want,
I said 500
Whatever
because
the
that's what
number is,
Dennis had said, but whatever number.
what about the ownership of another home in the community? In other words, aren't we trying to create a situation in which Airbnb owners have an interest in the community besides the B&B?
Right. Well, this law requires you to be next door or across the street. So you can't own one there and one halfway across the community. You can't do that. So
Well, own in the sense that they live in the other one. In other words, we're trying to generate a situation in which B&B owners have an interest in the community besides the B&B. So if they lived in the community somewhere nearby, I think that would be sufficient.
Well, that was just like saying a homeowner can only own one Airbnb in the town, which is fine because that works. Same soup, same bowl. So you have a house and you're allowed to own one Airbnb. Real simple. There's no footage, there's no.
What about, would that eliminate the possibility of having more than one unit in that B&B?
Correct. Well, no, not really. Basically you have a building that's being used for Airbnb, and if it's a 2-family home, it's a 2-family home.
Right, but I believe the town of Marlborough's statute from previous only allows one per property anyway, so that's not too much of an issue.
Right, right.
So can I ask, when you say 2 short-term rentals, is that 2 short-term rentals being short-term rentals and 2 B&Bs? Is that a B&B being in the air? What is that?
Well, one not
breakfast?
being owner occupied. Right?
So-
You
One of
can have
them,
interest in 2 short-term rentals, one you have to be your primary residence.
correct.
So let me see if I can sort of get a sense of what we're having here. I mean,
Mhm.
there are all kinds of ways to regulate non-owner occupied Airbnbs. And some of it is proximity, which is one of the reasons where that Marlboro has gone. The other is require that somebody be available to respond to issues. It's a manager kind of function that we've seen everyone that people write in. What the county planning board has said in the past is we want to discourage the crap out of non-owner occupied B&Bs, short-term rentals, excuse me. And in so doing, we've suggested that those caps be based on a number of different things. One is, the first thing you base them on is you give some people that own the short-term rentals a certain amount of time to register them as to whether they're owner occupied or non-owner occupied. And then you just and then what you basically say in the statute, it's that number plus any number plus a percent. And then what you end up doing is, and I can tell you this is where the Housing Smart Community Initiative is going, is we're looking to try to set a cap on the non-owner occupied short-term rentals based on a percentage of housing units. And when we look around the county, the percentage of short-term rentals that we currently know run anywhere between 2 to over, I think, 9 or 10%, with those areas in the mountains being the highest. So what I would try to tell the board is that you're having a discussion about where they can be rather than whether they can be. And my sense would be is that as long as people are available to respond to issues, it's the idea of whether, I just don't want it to be vague. So the idea that it could be within 500 feet or pick a number, 200 feet, certainly gets to the point of how you establish where you can have non-owner occupied short-term rentals. And it's related to the fact that you have somebody there to take care of the problem should they arise. But I would want to say something that these should be capped. We shouldn't engender ourselves. The idea that there's only 2, that makes some sense as well. But what we're hoping to do is drive the short-term rental folks into an owner-occupied mode rather than essentially a single owner owning multiple units, or as we've seen in the subdivision game, your wife owns one, you own one, your cousin owns one, and they're all controlled separately. And that's what we're trying to avoid, that effectively you end up with an investment model for short-term rentals versus an ownership model. And I'll stop right there. My apologies.
All right. So moving on from that. So I think basically, to sum up, Dennis, try to limit them to 1 owner occupied. I mean, they're limiting owner interest to 2. So if we can limit them to 1 owner occupied, if they own a second that's non-owner occupied, it should be with a host requirement.
Correct.
Or
Correct.
sort and remove the vague. Basically, what we want to do is the comment really is remove any vagueness. Is really
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you,
Motion
Robert.
is support staff.
Wait, we're not done with this.
We've got more.
But
That's
wait,
okay.
there's more.
Still making the motion. We can still go over it.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Unless somebody wanted to second that, and so I can keep
You
going.
can second, then we can have discussion.
Second it, McLaughlin.
Okay, I have to keep going though, before we've discussed.
Yep.
Okay, so there's
Thank you,
a
Robert.
lot, yard, and height regulations. in the R district. The R district is basically centered around the Hamlet Milton. And what they're adding is a category called with public water and sewer, which is standard for most places, but they also adding on natural gas as a row in their bulk table. And they're putting the number 7,500 square feet as a minimum onto that. So a few thoughts on that is, one, when we're talking about sustainability and we're talking about alternative energies, we don't want fossil fuels to necessarily be an incentive for creating density. We would avoid that. But looking at the use table, which you can see on your screen right now, you can see that the R district with water and sewer is 10,000 square feet. That is not, when you're talking about having access to water and sewer, you would like to see something closer neighborhood of 3,000, 5,500 square, 4,500 square feet. That gets you in the range of 10 to 15 units per acre. And that's what we'd like to encourage the town to really think about. If they're building out around the existing center and they have access to water and sewer, they should really consider thinking about increasing their density in those areas.
Rob, is there currently public natural gas in that, or community natural gas in that area right now?
I think it does run up the, I think it runs up the 9W corridor. I'm not exactly sure. The problem is the sewer doesn't run up the 9W corridor.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the only reason I, if it currently existing, supporting it is, to me, is not as bad. If building new would be a problem, but if it's existing already, supporting it is not as big an issue, I would think.
Yeah, the other only change to the statute is they removed any of the minimum sizing requirements for loading berth requirements, and are basically live case by case basis, leaving that up to the planning board. I don't have an issue with that. So that brought us to too far. So again, require mods about the density with the fossil fuels. And I didn't bring up one other thing. Should not be an incentive for greater density. But I just want to cite the county new deals as well as some New York State initiatives. And, we recommend upgrading density where there's access to water and sewer when driving growth around existing hamlets. And they should really think about 10 to 15 acres, or in this case of using square footage, 3,000 to 4,500 square feet a unit.
But that's with water and sewer, right?
That's with water and sewer.
Okay, so it
That's
doesn't go up 9W, so isn't that where the R zone is?
Yes.
So they
No,
could
the R
provide
zone
it
is
up
not
to 9W.
there. Let me bring it up. I think that would be easier if you had an understanding of it.
But it could be expanded.
Right. Let me.
It could be, but it's not there, so you can't get the density because it's not there.
Well, the reason you do that is so that the developer can afford to bring it there.
All right, now I'm over.
With all that money our government's handing out, you wouldn't run it up there?
So this is this is the R zone
Yeah,
in here. R zone is here. There's a lot of agriculture in here, actually. You got ag district parcels in there. More R in here. So I mean, if that was where, but this looks built out over in here mostly, in this portion of the R district. There are some vacant parcels though in there. So there is plenty of development potential in this zoning district.
Okay.
It seems like a good comment if somebody wants to do a project that's gonna bring it in.
And I just make the comment, I didn't have it in there. It was the STR comment about removing vagueness from the that distance limitation. And also this is also an opportunity when you're talking about increasing density. The town of Marlborough does not have any inclusionary zoning standards in their zoning statute. This is yet another opportunity. While they're making updates to their zoning statute, they should really look at the county housing action plan and start to really think about implementing inclusionary zoning in the town.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second on this. We got any other discussion? Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, very good. Motion passes. Okay, now we're on to the town of New Paltz. We have any recusals?
Nope.
Okay. all
Cone
right.
Iron Home is a proposal to add a generator to a senior residence. There is no county impact on adding a generator to a. senior
So
residence.
moved, Mike Baden.
Second,
Second,
McCarthy.
Watkins.
All right, very good. Any further discussion? All right, all those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Very good. Okay, now we're on to the Village of New Paltz. Any recusals?
Yeah, Murray.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
All right, Manheim Muse, this is the senior apartment, affordable apartment that's across from City of New Paltz on South 32, also Manheim Boulevard. And we reviewed this a couple of months ago for site plan review. And we noted at the time that it would come back to us for a height variance because they require 37.5 feet to establish the architectural features of their roof, which I'll show you right here, where 30 feet is allowed. And what they'll do that enables them to do is install solar and put their different mechanicals on top, and these architectural designs allow them to hide it. So that's a good idea. No county impact, the staff recommendation.
So moved, Mike Baden.
Second, Watkins.
All right, any further discussion? All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. All right, Mike, I'm assuming you're accused on the next several,
The next five.
next five, okay? Anybody else recused? Okay, Robert, it's all yours.
All right.
You're gonna
I'll
do
preamble
these.
this, but none of these are nearly as confusing as the water course law. So this is local law J. Basically what they're doing is amendments to administration and enforcement. They renamed the building inspector to be building inspector or code enforcer, because they could be code enforcement officer, because they could be the same person. And these are a bunch of minor changes. In the statute right now, it said applications need to conform to Ulster County Health Department permits. They're saying they require that they comply with Ulster County permits. They added a 24-month provision for a zoning permit issued by the building inspector or CEO, with a way for them to add time as long as it's not greater than 12 months. If it's more than 12 months and they haven't put stick in the ground, then it would have to go to the town board for approval. And they updated their violations and penalties code, which interestingly, and removed this section, which called there's a section that's called for anybody can make a complaint and required it in writing. I'm assuming they removed this because in this day and age, people don't write letters, and they might contact the town a variety of different ways, emails, texts, I don't know. So I think they just removed that from it. It doesn't preclude people from making complaint, but what it does is it boiled it down to that the code enforcement officer or building inspector is authorized to bring action if there's a violation to the zoning statute.
But
They
not in
also-
writing,
What's that?
but not in writing?
Didn't have to be in writing, so they removed the in writing requirement. So I guess they could pick up the phone now. It doesn't have to be any which way.
But it could be an email. You gotta have a record of it. So what are
Dennis,
they
can
gonna
I,
do?
can I clarify a misunderstanding? I'm not speaking on the application. It was listed on the application twice. We took it out one place and left it the other place.
So
Okay.
it still is required to be in writing.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
You gotta have a record of it.
Okay, so
Yes.
I saw it deleted from one. I didn't see it added. It was still in somewhere else. Okay, I
Okay.
just saw it was deleted. So, okay, so it was a duplication that was removed. Okay,
Correct.
got it. Okay, ignore that. All right, but one thing they did do is, so there was a section where they had violations, and they had a first violation fine, a second violation fine, a third violation fine. What they did was they added 5 years. So for example, under the current law, If you had a second violation, even if it was 30 years after the effect, you would still be charged with having a second offense. This provides at least a time period so that you're not getting fined for things that may have happened a really long time ago. So overall, no county impact on local law, Jay.
Motion to support staff Watkins.
Second.
Capone supports second.
All
Who was
right.
that?
Who was
Okay,
that
Mike. Oh,
seconded?
Mike.
Any further discussion?
Who seconded that? I apologize.
I'll have-
Mitchell Cohen second.
Oh, he got it. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, very good. Motion passes.
All right,
Okay.
Mike's recusing again. Local, okay, this is a look at their site plan and special permit procedures. They made sketch plan review now a minimum prerequisite so that everybody has to go through the process. We think that's a great idea. But they provided that sketch plans that are additions no greater than 10% or maximum square feet, they can be approved by the building department. And if it exceeds that, then it goes to the planning board. So they provided for really minor changes to go through a ministerial function, which is great. And the other thing they added was they changed some of the elements of the materials that are required as part of the site plan. And this is one that Dennis and I have been talking about for a long time, which is an aerial photo base map with the site plan overlay required as part of any site plan. It says 50 centimeter resolution, but it goes on to say you can get this from the Ulster County Parcel Viewer or other sources where you can get it from or pay for to get those aerials from. This is not a difficult ask. And also another nod that they put in was if there was evidence of potential or existing wetland or an Ulster County habitat core or other ecologically significant land, the planning board may require delineation or habitat study. So they added that to it. And I apparently copied the same slide. So we took this as an opportunity to say, what else could we add to the requirements for site plan review? And staff suggests that a look at how they are reducing their carbon footprint, how they're implementing green infrastructure or creating more infiltration on site should be included. What sustainability measures should be considered as part of the site plan application or within the planning board's ability to ask for those information specifically. And also whether they can ask for EV charging stations as well as part of that.
So, Rob, if I may, I just want to say that I don't want to lose the chance here in terms of making required modifications here to really compliment the board with
Yes.
respect to its efforts on this work. This is really
Yes.
some seminal work here, particularly with respect to the inclusion of aerial photos, et cetera, in the application. And I think it'll serve everyone very well, including not only the town of Rochester, but others to take a look at this. And so we're really sort of trying to put some icing on a cake that's pretty well baked right now.
Yes,
Hmm.
and I've made an advisory comment. The town also already has a checklist that they use in their application, but they should update their checklist to link up with these two, with the law. This is advisory.
Mitchell Cohen's.
And the other reason-
Support the staff.
Go ahead, Mitch, I'm sorry.
I'm making a motion to support the staff on this local law K.
Thanks, Mike Mitchell. Anybody want a second?
Motion McCarthy.
All right, very good. Any other discussion?
Second.
I don't think that the infrastructure should be a required modification. I think it should be up to the town. I think it should be advisory.
So one of the reasons we're starting to make these required has to do with the fact that the Community Leadership and Land Use and Climate Protection Act is headed in this direction. So we wanted to get ahead of it. So otherwise,
I agree.
they're not going to
but-
be, it won't be advisory for long, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all those opposed? Any abstentions?
Victor Marcos.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, on to local law M for Rochester.
All right. Bear with me. Local law L. So this is for sand, gravel, and quarrying operations, AKA extractive or mining uses. What they're doing is they're increasing the setback for such operations for 100 to 150 square feet, 150 feet, not square feet, sorry. Requires habitat restoration or habitat improvement as part of reclamation plan. So that's a great addition to it. In compliance with wetlands and stream buffers regulations provided by the town. We'd also, I think I may have, yeah, okay. So just to require modification is non-interference with, New York State has a substantial regulations with respect to mining reclamation, and that they shouldn't preempt those or not interfere with those regulations.
Well, doesn't this DEC have the lead on mines? The
Yes.
town's just informed of it.
I mean, yes, the DEC does regulate those mines and those mine reclamation plans,
Okay.
but their
We said
town
that
is
required-
jumping on, what's that?
We said that required modification, right?
Right,
The required modification, Mark, so the required modification mentions the fact that where DEC preempts, which is basically on the operations and process of mining, that should be checked. And I think that may apply to setbacks. I'm not sure. That's the only one I'm really concerned about.
Okay,
I'll double check the setback one.
motion to support
So we-
staff, Watkins.
Owens makes a second on the motion to support.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? Very good, motion passes. Okay, now on to local law M. I was ahead of myself last time.
Yes, okay, so this is an amendment to the commercial events facility standards. Just a couple additions, they have to notify the code enforcement officer 3 days in advance of minimum. They changed the hours of operation, they distinguish between Friday and Saturday events, let them go an hour later. Rather than the ones that happen during the week. They require fireworks and bonfires comply with federal, state, county, and local law. And they comply with if there are any design standards, development standards for the district they are in, that those commercial event facilities comply with them. So no county impact on that.
Motion McCarthy.
Second, McLaughlin.
All right, very good. Any further discussion? Okay, all those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, very good. Motion passes. Okay, Rochester local law in.
All right, so this one regulates accessory structures. So basically requires that detached structures be in the side or rear yard, but also covers accessory structures that are not attached to principal and are closer to the street. So these are ones that are existing usually, but or could be, but as long as the footprint isn't greater than the principal use, or if the accessory structure is greater than 100 feet from a lot line, it's not, and otherwise it's not allowed in the front yard setback. They also added, they already allow cargo and storage, portable storage containers as an accessory use, but they added the term cargo or portable trailers in connection with that to that, and they added, so what they originally, it says right now is commercial and institutional uses. They added agricultural, industrial, and residential permitted with a permit from the code enforcement officer. And there's also standards about where they can be located, that they can't be stacked and things of this nature, and that only 2 per property with respect to that. There also they added swimming pools as a accessory use, and they also changed some of the fencing requirements, going from 4 to 6 feet in the front yard, 8 feet max is already in effect on side and rear yards. but they measure it from the contours of the land, and you can't cheat by putting a berm underneath it. That's prohibited. Retaining walls over 8 feet require site plan review unless they're already included as part of the site plan review process or approved as part of the site plan review process. So staff recommends no county impact on that.
So
McCarthy.
Mr. Rockland.
Second, McCarthy.
All right, very good.
And
All right. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, very good. Motion passes.
oh wow, we have Dennis on video.
Yeah. Oh, good.
My internet is back, ladies and gentlemen.
Congrats.
My iPad just died.
Okay, we're on to the town of Saugerties. Is there any
All
recusals?
right.
Yes, Steve Hubbard recusing.
Okay, Steve, thank you.
All right.
All right, Robert.
All right, so just in time for our largest application of the evening, tennis is back. So this is, we actually did hold a gateway discussion last year, earlier this year on this. It was a pretty good meeting. Oh, excuse me, discussion. I think I zoomed out on it. Damn, I used a different slide. Hang on a sec. Sorry, share more. Bring that up. All right. So this is Route 212. Right here. That's Glasgow Turnpike. I'm echoing on somebody. Oh, Dennis, you're still on the phone. Hang up your phone.
Getting some
Thank
feedback.
you. Okay, so that's where it is. So it's right at the intersection of Glasgow Turnpike and Route 212, and it's these properties in there.
Wow.
Yeah, so as you can see, there are quite a bit of residences around it, and I'll pan around to show you that. The town of Saugerties does have a requirement for campgrounds for a 50 feet buffer, and that's in effect in all places. There is one portion of property back in here where they actually have it about 100-foot buffer. And that's probably more than 100 feet. That's probably more like 250 feet. That just drew. So there's that. Access will be from 212. They will need a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers for a wetland crossing near along that access road. Let me go to and tell you a little bit more about it. So it's a 50-unit glamping campground, which is the maximum allowed in the statute. There's also gonna be a lodge, which is 7,600 square feet. There's 50 tents, as I mentioned. There's gonna be 1,100 square foot wellness center. The roads will be 24 feet wide. There will be that stream crossing, wetland stream crossing I mentioned. Emergency access on the contail, that Glasgow Turnpike area, that is only emergency access only. Internal circulation, so once you get up to the property, you'll park your car, but then once you get beyond that, there'll be pedestrian or golf cart access only. They're pretty sensitive to impervious surfaces beyond that, and they are looking to porous pavement elsewhere on the property. So there'll be gravel paths. They have decided to go the way of a wastewater treatment plant. So that's going to need approval of New York State DEC. There'll be activity lawns. There'll be like a center for in the center of property to be for any events. It's in the center of property. There will be, of course, a pool, and then there'll be places for facility operations on property. And now I will show you the actual site plan.
Hey, Rob,
Yes.
can we put a comment in there about the EV, electric vehicle charging stations?
You know, I don't have a sustainability comment on this, so we can say something about that. They should look at infrastructure on that. This is glamping. It is a higher end. So what you're seeing now, and we've been seeing this a couple of times, especially in Saugerties, twice now, where you have national brands of campgrounds coming in with their higher end kind of like campsite. Like I think one of them that we saw earlier was actually a KOA as the base, and this is a similar kind of function to that. So this is glamping. So you're going to have water and sewer lines to each individual campsite. because there will be
Wow.
bathroom facilities in each tent. So this is the overall site, and I'll zoom in a little bit. So what you're seeing, all those blobs, that's where their limits of what they're going to disturb is going to be on the site. And you can see the crossings over in here. You can see there's also, I wanted to do, well, I'm going to stop my share for a second because I forgot. The site plan package is so extensive that I actually didn't want to bring up in my PowerPoint. I just wanted to bring up the PDF. So just bear with me 1 second. I'm going to stop my share.
Rob, this is Mitchell Cohen. Just
Sure.
a question for you, because this, something like this happened in Hurley
Right.
not too long ago, and I don't know whether or not the county can be provided with a copy of the requirements, a letter of requirements by the DEC prior to the site or the special use plan being provided. So just a comment that before the special use permit can be, or planning board can continue with the application, for the application to be complete, the DEC requirements should be completed first.
Prior to approval is what you're saying?
Right.
Okay, that's a good comment.
Oh, this is Steve Hubbard with a question. What's the total acreage of this project?
Hang on a sec. I mean, I think you're recused.
I am, but it's just a question.
Okay. Total acreage of the project is, 1 sec. Let me go back a slide.
77.5.
Yeah, I think it was 77.5. Yeah. Let me
Okay,
share my
thanks.
screen again. 1 sec. All right, go back to screen 2. Okay, so now I'm gonna, now that I have the site plan set, I can share that with you all.
There it is.
Bear with me a second. There we go. No, doesn't want to do. 1 sec. Okay, there we go. Now the site plan set up. Okay. So this is overall existing conditions. You can see there's a lot of wetland on the property, and that's going to be one of our comments that comes up, especially with respect to how these are surrounding those wetlands. There is also, I should say, a Ulster County Habitat Corps on site. While there aren't any evidence of endangered species on the site, these habitat, basically the way they are centered, and I'm going to zoom in. So you can see these sites really, you have this wetland here, and there's no real, these are state wetlands, so there doesn't have any buffer requirements, but there needs to be some means or maintenance or protection of the wetlands, because what you're having is a large number of campsites encroaching pretty closely on the wetlands, and those tend to be breeding grounds for things like turtles, which they did find evidence of on site. They may not be endangered, but they're still habitats.
So what we're concerned about here is literally the fact that the site plan does a it does a good job of avoiding wetlands. But when you look at where the campsites are, they're actually very close to wetlands. And the concern is that over time, people lose the respect and or the actual boundary of those wetlands, and they end up being encroached upon by the campers or others. So the key here is not only for them to delineate the sites and avoid them with respect to the campsites themselves, but also to look for long-term protection of those wetlands in terms of some educational material, some signing material, or something to make sure that over time these wetlands don't get lost in terms of where they are and what they represent on the site. That's what this comment's about.
Right.
Sorry, Rob.
No, that's great. Oh, that's right. I can't press line.
Dennis or Rob, did they do an actual field delineation of the wetlands?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
they did.
Thank you.
There's a crossing I mentioned. You can see that they are delineated on the site. And they do a good job of stating their limits of disturbance throughout the project. So that, I mean, that's really detailed. We don't see that level of detail. It's just that it's so tight. The other thing, and I'm gonna get to, is I'm trying to find the on one of the site plans, there's a buffer line. I want to maybe I'll go back to the aerial on it. Let's see if I can get to this. But you can see these are rural campsites back here, but these are 50 feet off of Contail Lane right here. This is Contail Lane, that's Glasgow Turnpike. So you can see that these residences, it's pretty tight up against it.
That's just for
So-
the emergency access road, right,
That's the
Rob?
emergency access, but okay, right here, for example, you have the 100-foot buffer, and then you have the 40-foot setback, but then you have a 50-foot buffer, and then you have residences pretty close by. So we just want to make sure that there's a noise, some sort of noise monitoring going on.
It's the quality of the buffer is what you're
Yes,
asking.
well,
for,
yeah,
right?
I'm asking, and that's in there, and it's in the required mod. And actually, maybe I'll just go to my required mods, because that will help guide me through comments a little bit better. Ooh. So I'm just gonna go through a bunch of comments, and I can always go back to the site plan package if there's people have questions. But DC for the package plant, Ulster County Health will need for potable water, for the food service, and for the pool. NIZOT for access to Route 212. Let's see. Army Corps
Rob,
of
the county is also a campground permit. Anything above 5
Yes,
units. requires-
absolutely right. Campground permit as well. Thank you.
Sustainability.
Yeah, and we'll add the sustainability comment to this as well. We'll look for ways they could do on-site solar, provide EV charging stations, things of that nature. They are doing a pretty good job with the stormwater part of it. There seems to be a call to consolidate the 2 lots, but I haven't seen it yet. So if they're not going to consolidate the 2 lots, they need to have easements in place. Again, the noise lighting comment, we're talking about the quality of buffer. It's 100 feet at some points, 50 at other points. So either they need to look at the distance of the buffer or improve fencing, more landscaping, more vegetation, things of that nature. Mr. Murray, you have a comment?
Just a question. Do we have any estimate of how many trees will be coming down? How much clearing?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah. Looks like looks like they have to take down quite a bit. Maybe they could do some replacement of what they take down.
Especially in the buffer area.
Yeah.
Well, we can add that there should be
Yeah.
an estimate. I think that's a great comment.
Yeah.
Because it is a habitat core area.
Exactly.
So, I mean, my sense is that if you go through and you deal with wetlands, you have a mitigation measure, which is wetlands, which is to reestablish some cover. And the point here would be to think of this, think of similar things, and particularly relative to some of the buffer areas that we're talking about. And that's a great comment. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Just there was no zoning compliance table on the plans. They should have that. I know that most of it, like, they were very specific. They knew that 50 unit sites was their limit. So they were aware of the 50-foot buffer requirement from the property line, but just to make sure that they're upfront and they have a conformed table on the plan. There's no dumpster location or screening or anything that shows a dumpster enclosure. They should have that located on the site plan.
Yeah,
And
it's more about waste management on site than it is just dumpsters.
Right.
I mean, campers are notoriously free with terms of how they dump things. And then
Yeah.
the other question we had with
Bears,
respect
things
was,
of that nature.
yeah,
Yes.
and the other question we had, I think, was didn't we raise some questions about fire as well, didn't we, Robert? As I
Yeah, that
recall.
was a question I had. Are they allowing cooking facilities at each site, or?
There are actually
In the tent.
there are designated locations for, and I can find for like outdoor grilling actually.
Okay,
But I don't know if they're allowed to do it on, I think, they have the lodge. This is glamping after all. So I think they'll either at the lodge or they'll do at the, but we should have to clarify whether they're allowed to cook it at their site.
yeah.
I think at a glamping kind of thing, they're probably not wanting to cook at their site.
But if they're, are they gonna have open fire, like, fire pits? I
Yeah,
thought
that's what we want to know,
Yeah.
Cynthia. I don't know that, but we want to make sure that there's.
I do have I could go deep into this because they do have typicals of each different unit in the package, so. And of the sites, I'd have to go a bit deeper into the site plan package, but they do have typicals.
It wouldn't be bad to do, Robert. You can. The board doesn't.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I thought I saw fire pits on the,
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah, I mean, you can see them. But let me see if I can go to, I think they're on each site. But this is an 86-page site plan package, so. So again, these are some of the, I think that's a lodge.
Yeah, you have to be careful because, you know, I mean, what kind of wood, are they gonna provide the wood? And are they gonna put instructions not to throw garbage into those, pits?
Yeah. It looks like some of these units do have kitchen amenities in some of these units. I don't know if this is the staff housing or not on the,
Look like single family dwellings.
yeah.
Yeah, there's some staff housing in here. I think that's
might
what you were
be-
looking at.
Yeah, that was staff housing. So there's staff housing on, so that's the other thing that is a real positive of this site is that they actually provide for staff housing full-time on site. A lot of these proposals do not, and that leaves open the question where's the staff going to be?
Rob, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have fire department sign off on this.
Right. All right, so we'll add a fire department comment. We'll add
Rob, I would actually say fire and EMS both.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking about.
all
Yeah,
right, fire and
first
EMS.
responders.
Okay,
Yeah.
first
Idea.
responders. And
The
to gentleman
sustainability comment as well was the other one, Robert. I'm writing them
Right.
down.
to the gentleman who's raising his hand in the public, we have public comment up front, so that period has already expired.
You also had the tree replacement comment from Mr.
Right,
Murray.
no,
then.
we'll add the tree replacement comment. Anything else?
I believe the camping permit too.
Yeah,
What's that?
camping permit from the health department.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
add that. So camping.
Campground, yeah,
Yeah.
under health.
The beauty of these videos is that I get to go back and I can go see them as I write the referral response.
I'll make the motion, Mike Baden, to support staff comments with the additions.
Second it, McLaughlin.
All right, very good. And Robert, we're voting on both the site plan and the special permit, right?
You are.
Okay. Any further discussion then? All right, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, very good. Motion.
I just
passed.
want to say that the town of Saugerty's planning board did a lot of work on this. And it's reflected in the amount of material we got in.
Good job, guys. And girls.
All right. Next one is Shawangunk. Any recusals on Shawangunk?
Watkins.
Okay, thanks, Mark. All right, Robert, local law
Let me
number
go-
5.
I'm trying to go back up one here.
Okay,
Come on. Work with me, PowerPoint.
You jinxed
There we go.
yourself, Rob.
What's that?
You jinxed yourself.
I did jinx myself. No, I jinxed myself. So this is yet another one of our, see what I did? It's on delay. Okay, no. There you go.
no,
Okay,
there you go.
local law number 5, 2012. This is another one of our miscellaneous zoning text amendments for tonight. They added provision to this town, the standards, which is pretty common throughout many zoning statutes we already have in Ulster County, that if it's not specifically listed within the use regulations, it's prohibited in all zoning districts. They also added where something is permitted or uses allowed by special permit are identified by generic words. They leave that words or descriptions, I should say. The building inspector has to make a determination on that. Staff might comment on that as an advisory to look through anything that's generic and try to make it not generic. Try to add some, there's nothing wrong with increasing the length of a use table and fleshing it out so that it
Or the
doesn't-
definition
so
table.
you reduce the number of times somebody has to interpret something. All about transparency. They added a standard for drive-throughs. Most of this is great stuff. So minimum lot area for a drive-through would be 20,000 square feet. They have to be attached to a principal building, so you can't see these remote little pods. Aisles are screened from the public and have to be, and they can't, as if they're joining a residence or residential use. They're not allowed in any of the setbacks. Bypass lane is required, which is always appreciated. They also, this reads like it came from our planning board, but sufficient queuing required, and they reserve the right to request a queuing study and a look at comparable facilities. So we have that. And also it has to have a lighting plan. And also another good comment up from it was that pedestrian access cannot go across the drive-through lane. We have so many drive-throughs in Ulster County where pedestrians take their lives into their own hands because they're crossing the busy.
Rob, is this drive-throughs in conjunction with any type of use, whether it be a bank or fast food or?
Any type of use.
Okay, thank you.
So I do have some thoughts on that, is that they try to, in the hamlet areas or the more urban areas of the town, that they try to not allow these in those areas. I mean,
I
20,000.
think the point is they could allow them, but not allow the second access point to the road. So you don't have multiple sidewalk interruptions in the urbanized areas.
So what you're saying is no dedicated access for drive-throughs is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, so we'll make that as the comment. No dedicated. All access should be from.
And you can basically look at the hamlet zoning or wherever they have that certain zoning district, that's where it should be. Where you have sidewalks, you shouldn't have multiple access points for a drive-through.
Going on. So another great thing they added was shared
Hey,
parking.
Rob, I'm sorry, one more question. Are they allowed in all zoning districts or just business or?
I don't know if it was limited. I don't recall if it was limited to his term zoning district. I'd have to look at that, but
okay.
I would imagine they don't restrict them. They're basically, if a use needs it, they could probably put a drive-through in.
Okay.
Parking. So they added a shared parking requirement so that they may eliminate a portion of required parking spaces no more than 30% if there's a shared parking opportunity. They also included parking banking into the statute with a similar component that they have to set aside, they have to grade it, but they don't have to actually pave it, mark it, and save it for later. So they have a set aside for parking banking, which is great. Also providing for amortization of non-conforming uses. So the first two things they did is, one, they established what means abandonment. So if anything is 24 months or more, it's abandoned and is now considered can be removed. And also they add a provision that can be compulsory termination and amortization. So essentially what the town could say is, this is a type of non-conforming use, say billboards is a very common one. Say billboards, and they say, we want these removed. They can send notification to all those owners of those billboards or non-conforming use, whatever they might be, and they have to give them a reasonable amortization period to do so. But it gives the town the ability to do that, which is great. And then they have some regulations with respect to flag lots, and they're allowed in all districts except for the residential agricultural zone, except where water sewer is permitted. And they can only occur if it's 5 or less lots, you can only have 1 flag, and then if there's more than 5 lots, you can have an additional flag. And there's other regulations with respect to flag lots. There's also regulations about if flag lots have shared driveways, they have to have driveway maintenance agreements and things of that nature. The other interesting thing they did was to expedite site plan approval process is they put some of it in the hands of the building department. So if the department finds in each of these things that I'm listing here to be occurring, they can basically not send it to the planning board and approve it on their own. But it would include lawful use unless protected by a prior non-conforming use status. So it can't be a prior non-conforming use. The building pre-exists and no additions or expansions are proposed. That's similar to our exception agreement. No use the same. The new use has to be same as the most recent use and has not been discontinued for 2 more years. So a restaurant replacing a restaurant, for example. No changes to stormwater, parking, unloading, traffic circulation, exterior design, landscaping, or lighting are needed. Now, my comment on there would be that, for example, the town's lighting standards lag behind, for example, a lot of the county's policies and other towns' policies. I would recommend that the town update its lighting to be more dark sky, full cutoff, LED, things of that nature. So there are a lot more opportunities.
Well, you could give the building inspector a guideline, and
Right.
even if he changes the lighting, he doesn't have to come for planning
Right.
board review if it meets the guidelines. That's the key in here is that we certainly very much appreciate what the town's doing here and don't want to basically force them into review. So the thought being is where it says no changes, the idea basically says that the changes are consistent with the guidelines that the building inspector is given, and you give the building inspector some guidelines to work with, and they get adopted and passed on by the planning board to the building inspector.
And that is similar to our exception agreement, which basically says if lighting is proposed to be full cutoff, we're fine with it too. And I think things like channelized access, things of that nature. And then the building department may refer a planning board at any time. It doesn't have to exempt it, can refer it. But if they don't refer it, then they have to notify the clerk of the planning board with a summary, and they have to wait 10 business days before issuing any permits or determinations. So the planning board can take a look at it and say, no, we want to see it or not.
Robert or Dennis, I'm not sure that last item is legal. Just from my understanding of, unless the town board has issued the planning board with the authority in the local law establishing the planning board that they can make determinations, they can only, this has been my research, they can only take the determination from the building department, or it can be challenged, the code enforcement or building department's determination can be challenged to the ZBA. But I just, it's to me, it's probably not legal. I'm not familiar with their code, but just on generic principle of how it's usually done, I don't think that that's illegal.
So let me see if I understand this, Mike. You're saying that if the building department decides it has if the statute gives the building department the power to not require site plan review,
right?
The building department cannot on its own decide that with respect to this, it prefers that the planning board.
No,
Dennis.
what I'm saying is what it says here, if the building department does not refer it and the planning board then says, oh no, we should have seen that. Because that's what that last statement is saying. The planning board doesn't have the authority to override the building department by law.
Yeah.
Because they're not a determining board.
So I guess a comment would be recommend a procedure whereby the planning board could make sure it
They
comes
either
to-
have to change the local law in the formation of the planning board, that the town board would have to give them the power to do that.
All right.
But I'm not even sure that is even legal under the state statute. Because the only way you can challenge a code enforcement officer's determination is to file a claim against it and take it to the zoning board of appeals.
So I think we have an advisory comment coming up in that.
I'm hearing you, Mike. I'm not suggesting I agree with you, but I hear what you say.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is not an original jurisdiction from the building department's standpoint. It's a granted opportunity to the planning department, to the building department. It's not like he's making the determination under the zoning statute. He's literally following a section of the statute that has a specific written provision in it. We'll make the comment that they should check.
Yeah,
I hear what you're saying.
I just worry that they're setting themselves up for legal challenge because I don't think the planning board can override what the building department has done.
So comments are overall, these are great updates. These are great updates. Again, drive through, not necessarily not in the hamlet areas, but in the hamlet areas, they should not have a dedicated second access for drive-throughs. And the we'll add to the non-referral to the planning board, but if they are showing as part of their plan upgrades to lighting and to be LED full cutoff, and they should have the town should still update its standards or some upgrades to, for example, like sustainability.
The words no changes, I think, are the ones that we want to basically ask them to sort of work to say if there are changes and they're positive and they're within guidelines handed down by the planning board, then I think that they should go ahead. That's the point, is give the planning board an opportunity to give the zoning enforcement officer some guidelines with respect to what the no changes mean.
Okay.
But we want to compliment the town. These are really thoughtful, and they're well written, and they should be adopted. Yeah. How about a motion, guys?
Yeah.
Motion to support McLaughlin with the addition that Mike has in there.
Aaron.
Second, Mike
Vince.
Baden.
Who's the second?
Aiden.
All right. And Watkins.
Right.
Sorry, I was trying to say it, but I was muted. Apologies.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, all those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes.
All right.
Okay, we're on to Warsing. Any recusals?
All right. First one's the daycare law. Town of Warsing believes this is an omission in their use table, where nursery and daycare facilities are not allowed in the RU zoning district, but allowed everywhere else. They want to add it back in. There is no county impact on that.
Great.
McCarthy motion.
Moved.
Who's the
Who
second?
seconded?
Me, McLaughlin.
Thank you, Vince.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
gonna have to,
Any further discussion? All right, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Only 3 more to go. We're worsening. So another zoning law change.
All right. This is our third and final miscellaneous updates. But in those miscellaneous updates, there's maps and one text. So the one thing, they're adding place of worships to the RP zone. That's not of county impact. And then this is all part of the same referral. And I'll show you this in the map. They're expanding the BH zone along the east side of Route 209, and that's kind of a natural extension. Actually, not expanding, they're actually expanding. Oh, let me get to the map. It's easier. So this is existing zoning. Thank you, Dennis. So what we have here, the red is the BH zone. And then if you see over here in the yellow, let me get my annotation here. This is what we're talking about, the BH zone. And we're talking about the RS1 zone here. And what they're proposing is some extension. What they're doing is extending the RS1 zone is what they're really doing in both cases. So let me clear my annotations. All right. Oh, I see what's going on.
next map.
Yeah, I had to close out of annotations there. There we go. So those yellows are all RS1 now. So what they do is the RS1 is extended all the way to the road, and here this is residential, and then the RS1 again residential throughout here is extended out. No county impact on that.
Rob, where is this in relation to Warsing? I just don't have a picture of where we are.
Shoot, do I have
South of Ellenville or north of Ellenville?
hang on a sec, let me see if I actually brought it into my,
It's not that important. I was just curious.
yeah, let me just see if I can, did I have it as a, there we go. I'll zoom out a little bit.
Okay, I know where it is now.
Rob, throw the floodplains up on there, would you please?
Sure.
Okay. All right. That's
Uh-huh.
good. That's what I wanted to know.
I'll move it, McLaughlin.
All right,
Second,
Yeah.
Baden.
all right, very good.
RS1 is a more protective category of zoning too.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, very good. Motion passes. Okay, we got one more for Warworthing, Corvell,
All right.
or two more, I mean.
Actually, do we issue do we do anything with that? Anybody make a motion on this one?
Yes, we're all set.
All right, fine. And this one is an area variance for Cove Valley. It's a minimum lot size variance as a result of a lot line change. There's no county impact on that.
McCarthy motion.
Second. Who was the second?
Good.
Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
All right, any further discussion? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Very good, motion passes. Last one again.
That was a geo drawing.
It
Yes,
was.
it was.
And I even spoke to Geo and Geo says hi.
That's the best.
Oh, Michael.
Okay, so Quality Services Northeast, we sold this for a area variance a couple months back. We issued no county impact on. This is expansion of well done facility next to Dunkin' Donuts as you enter toward the Elmville area. And access is from existing access. They got landscaping. They actually got very complimentary about, they don't need a SWIP, but they got very complimentary comments from Bernier and Laris on their set erosion control on the plan. Then the lighting is good, just an expansion of an existing self-storage facility. And there's adequate turning access for fire access as well.
No county
This one with
impact?
the- This is the one where the old bowling alley is?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second the
Wanna
motion. Mr. Mitchell-Cohen.
Really want to compliment the existing lighting. It's really, really well done for a storage unit in comparison to what some others look like.
Yes.
Be happy to do that.
Who made
Hey.
the second?
I
Mitch
did.
Cohen.
Mitchell-Cohen.
Thank you.
All right,
And we're done.
any further discussion on this one? All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes and we're done.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your summer and stay healthy.
Motion
Thank
to
you.
adjourn.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
okay.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.